Right. Hi everyone, if you don't know me already, my name is Michelle Bennett Curve. I am a paraprofessional who works with elementary school students with living with autism. But besides from that, and also I've done keynote speeches, I am a blogger of my own blog series, The World of Autism. And my guest here today is Rachel Hawkins. How are you doing, Rachel?
Hi, Michelle. Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. So let's start off here. Please tell everybody about yourself.
Okay, so I'm an occupational therapist, worked mostly in schools. Most recently, I created two programs for young adults. It was called Transition to Independence, trying to teach the skills that in the transition from school to adulthood, basically. And I've been trying to get out there and do interviews and writing and trying to now to get into the world of diversity and inclusion, particularly neurodiversity.
Very cool. What is that? What does neurodiversity means to you? What does that mean to you?
I think, so the idea is that people think differently. So utilizing different, these individuals who might have different ways of thinking or acting. I try not to say people with disabilities, but it's, if you think about it, people with autism or attention deficit disorder or things like that, OCD, dyslexia, and we try to look at what does that person have to offer that might be a little different than what most people would think of, and using those different abilities to the company's advantage. In fact, my program is called, the full name is Transition to Independence, Unlocking Special Abilities, because I wanted to get away from like special needs or disabilities or words like that. So that's the idea.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
I see that a lot today where especially when it comes to employment where people it's like they for people that are applying that like myself
Mm-hmm.
an example actually that I when applying and stuff like you're going in like you don't want to be like where you're like how can I quote it? I'll quote like let's not use labels because labels are for
Mm-hmm.
not for people. So that comes right there where like when like us that going into applying for jobs that we want to be more of like ourselves and not about
Mm-hmm.
our disability, and I think that's what
Right.
of employment that's what I think people need to understand to not about our deficits but more about like what our strengths and skills are, and that's what people should pay attention to. So that is great that
Right. I think, the hiring processes, I'm just starting to get into this, but the hiring processes are in some companies that are taking it on are changing in that they're not doing traditional interviews, which are more of like a social conversation, which can be hard for people on the spectrum like me.
yeah.
And it's interesting that we're both, I use the language like on the spectrum or have autism, um, and that we're in that field of working with individuals with the same difference. So the hiring processes are changing, or that's one thing that I would like to help with. Because I think we have a lot to offer in terms of knowing what it's like for these individuals that are looking for jobs and having to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the interviewing process, like I think that there are things that still need to change from it than the way that people potentially like hire candidates because
Right.
people they go for what they feel like is not based on like the person's potential, like what they grow from. And as for me, like that I work as a paraprofessional, I will say that I think this is something that needs to be worked on is that
Mm-hmm.
people should take in just for potential and recognize the strengths and skills that's already present. So that's something that's really important. So let me ask
Right.
you, is you have your background as a occupational therapist. How do you think that that can help you in terms of with increasing about with neurodiversity?
What's that?
How can your background, like you have experience as an occupational
Mm-hmm.
therapist, how could you how are like some ways that you could like promote that with neurodiversity?
Well, I think that's a good um, career because I combine creativity, having gone through a lot of the experiences that people on the spectrum go through, including like sensory challenges, social challenges. Like one thought I had was, or have is, this time it's a little difficult to do this, but to go into an office building and see, how the environment is set up. I use the example of like, or do they have like fluorescent lighting or bright lighting?
Right.
Things that make certain sounds in the office building that might be distracting. Um, Things like where are the desks set up. Um, I could get into, now I'm just thinking I could get into like ergonomics with the desk and the chair and the things like that, which is more useful for everyone in the office actually. And then just being able to, know what the employee experience is like as someone on the spectrum, and being able to talk to their supervisor or manager about that and what that's like. So I actually created a presentation on that, like helping companies, integrate these employees or hire more of these employees and see what the value is of that. So I'm working towards like consulting or getting into a company and being able to do that.
Right, right. Like what you were saying about with consulting and everything, that's I feel like that's something that's growing a lot in terms of like where everyone's like coming in and it's like seeing like how the environment's like how
Mm-hmm.
and just to keep on educating because autism is a spectrum. So
Right.
it's always going to be years and years of professional development that is going to be needed everywhere because
Mm-hmm.
that is something that people still need to continue to understand. Definitely.
Right.
Like in my like I'll tell you in my work and stuff, like that's always one thing that we're always getting trained on is
Mm-hmm.
to continue to like work with individuals like with autism and other disabilities because it's gonna keep growing and I'll tell you this in my state in New Jersey alone that the majority of the state that's one of the biggest states that has the growing rate of
Okay.
autism. So that's why there's always continuous education and
Mm-hmm.
so consulting is definitely one big thing that's gonna be in terms for employment. That would be one of the biggest things.
Right. And what age do you work with?
I work with elementary level.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So like for like a couple of years now and stuff, like I've gotten with experience with students with autism, like kindergarten up to third grade so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have the elementary level,
Okay.
so yeah, so yes, definitely. And actually, before that we wrap this up, I have one last thing to ask you, which is actually about what inspired you to go into like with occupational therapy and then with neurodiversity? Like what inspired you about that?
Well, that's a good question. Originally it was not anything to do with autism. After college, I studied political science, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I guess to make it short, I had a medical emergency a few days after I graduated, and I was home and lucky because my parents or at that time, were both self-employed. So they were able to stay home with me and take up time off work. So I was, a serious medical emergency. I was in the hospital for a week and had physical therapy there. And I think there must have been someone that came in and asked about if I could put like my socks on, which is probably an OT. And I was able to do that. So they, discharged me, and I had outpatient physical therapy, which I really loved because I loved the therapist and I think just having something to do. But I had some trouble with, I remember with putting my shirt on and washing my hair. And if I was living by myself, it would have been hard to do reaching up into cabinets above my head. And so I did some research. I think my mom helped me with, that too, because both of my parents are very supportive. And we came to occupational therapy, which combines my creativity and my love for science and working with people in a particular way. And then I started in a skilled nursing facility, and that was too fast paced, and I wasn't really interested in that age group and what I was doing there. So I actually I got a job in the DC area, and I moved for that in a school. And I think at some point, well, I think it was that, because my mom said something like, you could work with kids with autism or something like that. And then, throughout my now about 10 years in the field, I've come to working these different jobs and schools, and this last position really gotten into making a difference for people like me with some challenges, and being able to get into, having these individuals find important work that they love, and being an advocate and presenting.
That is awesome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Just taking from your experiences right there, like your own challenges you've gone through, and your own background experiences with being an occupational therapist, really just shows that how much that you could take on and share your experiences with other people to make improvements in their practices as well. So that's
Yeah,
Rachel. That's amazing. Do you have any advice to anybody, to any other individuals with autism, or to any professionals you want to give before we end it?
Let's see. I would say, I'm trying to remember because I wrote a submission for an anthology. So one was cultivating the individual's talent. So I had, well, when I was growing up, there wasn't really much known about autism. But my parents one example is my parents got me into Suzuki violin at 3 years old, because my mom learned or heard that it was enhancing brain development or something like that. It spurred, learning and brain development. So I got into that, and then throughout my life, music has been I think it gave me an equal playing field, because you're not talking verbally talking when you're playing music. You're, like in jazz music, jazz improv, you have to communicate non-verbally with the people. So I don't know how much that helps me in actual conversation, but it was definitely a big influence. Or some of the others. There's that one. Finding the best fit for your child. Like my parents put me into a private high school, which I realized not all parents are able to do, but finding the best, environment for them. I didn't remember the others, which I can't remember now, but it's about enhancing their strengths and seeing what they're good at. Focusing on that. I wish I could remember them, but they'll be in this, I think it's called This Is Autism anthology, with a lot of self-advocate pieces. So,
Right. Yeah. I am as well,
you're
actually.
in there.
I was reached out about that too.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know about with Rachel, she was actually in Miss Jessica Letchwood's series called Bridge the
I
Gap.
was.
And yes, she was on that series, and it was great, like listening when I actually got to listen with that you were on that, so it was amazing to see that. And
Yeah, I think I heard yours on there.
yeah, so it's going to be awesome. Her story and my story are both going to be featured in that book, so can't wait for when that comes out. And so thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
And you guys will be able to check this out when it comes out, and also when the book comes out, you'll be able to read our stories and stuff, and you'll be able to wait. I'm going back. Sorry. You'll please check out her for her video as well on Jessica's YouTube YouTube series, Bridge the Gap. So thank you guys so much.